The Tampa Bay Buccaneers finish out the preseason with some great things, but also some devastating news. That and more on tonight's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this live post-game immediate reaction episode of Locked On Bucs podcast, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or view every single day, but especially immediately following a game. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs, your credentialed member of the media, deputy editor of SB Nation's BucsNation.com, covering your Tampa Bay Bucs, here with you every Monday through Friday, along with our everydayers. And as always, we want to share our appreciation for your continued support of the show. This episode of Locked On Bucs is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or find them in the App Store and sign up with promo code Locked On to get your first deposit doubled up to $100. Some Bucs players that were on our radar played well Saturday night, and I give my biggest takeaways, but we have to start with the big news of the night, and that is that Ryan Jensen's season is over, potentially his career. Jason Licht had joined the Buccaneers broadcast in the third quarter and informed everyone that the Buccaneers will place Ryan Jensen on season-ending injured reserve. Ian Rappaport followed that up with a tweet saying that Jensen has likely played his final game in the NFL. Jensen, of course, did not have surgery following his injury in training camp last year and somehow, someway made it back for the playoff game against the Dallas Cowboys. But now that knee still is not ready. And quite honestly, it may never be ready again. So that means that Robert Hainsey is your starting center for 2023 and potentially beyond. We'll have more reaction on that throughout the week as David will be back tomorrow. Of course, Evan will be back on Wednesday. I do want to jump over to the chat real quick. There's a lot of people in the chat already. We got Daniel. I'm still sad about Jensen. Demon Hunter 0219 says the true heart of the team. G Vegas, he says, I think Jensen's career is over. Yeah, just a lot of people are upset. We do have Demon Hunter also saying the Buccaneers are in good hands with Robert Hainsey. I would agree. I do think Robert Hainsey is going to be all right. He showed that he is a viable starting center in the NFL last year. Took some lumps, made some mistakes. It's going to happen. This is a guy that transitioned over to center after joining the NFL. But it's going to be the bar is set so high for Robert Hainsey having to succeed Ryan Jensen, if indeed Jensen's career is over, that he's going to be judged really, really harshly. And his mistakes are going to be magnified 100 times over compared to anyone else that would have been playing that position because he's following Ryan Jensen. That's going to be the issue. But overall, I think Hainsey's going to be all right. I'm going to talk more about the offensive line coming up in a little bit, but not the news that a lot of Bucs fans were hoping to hear, wanted to hear, anything like that. Honestly, I was kind of, fingers crossed for this show, for all our viewers, for all our listeners. When they teased that Jason Licht was going to be in the booth and had some news, I was thinking, ooh, are we about to get a Mike Evans extension announcement? Because they spent a lot of time talking about Mike Evans and what he's done for the team and being basically the best offensive player ever drafted by the Buccaneers. Instead, it was the complete polar opposite of that news with Ryan Jensen being out for the year. But I do want to talk a little bit about the starters before we hit the break. And we didn't see any of the starters after the first quarter. Baker Mayfield, Chris Godwin, they only got 2 drives each, but Baker finished 6 for 6, 42 yards, a touchdown. Chris Godwin, 4 of those 6 completions, 30 yards, a touchdown. Rashad White, my goodness, does he look good? 7 carries, 39 yards, 1 reception for 2 yards. And I know our everydayers know that I have to talk about it. Those in the live chat, I have to talk about it. We're getting Cade Otton reverses for 12-yard gains and first downs. What is this Dave Canales offense? That was outstanding. You all know that I was jumping up and down screaming for my guy, Cade Otton. There was no Mike Evans on the field, didn't suit up, didn't play. That wasn't a factor. But overall, really like what we saw out of the Bucs starters on offense, especially that offensive line. Again, I'm going to talk more about them coming up in the biggest takeaways that I have from this game. But now I got to flip over to the other side of the ball and talk about the defense. They looked a little shaky. Honestly, both set of starters on both sides of the ball, not so great on the first drive. The Buccaneers went 3 and out on offense. Then on defense, they give up a 4-play, 80-yard touchdown drive to former Buccaneer Josh Johnson and a lot of the Ravens backups. They didn't have Levante David. They didn't have Antoine Winfield. They didn't have Kalijah Kancey on top of other players that didn't play. I'm just mentioning those guys because they're the starters, but there was no KJ Britt. There was no who else missed? It's escaping me right now, but they were missing quite Servassier Dennis. They were missing quite a few players, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But as far as starters were concerned, no Winfield, no Levante, no Kancey. But on the second drive for the Baltimore Ravens, 5 plays, 14 yards, and then they punt. That looked really good. And I have to, you guys know that I'll criticize, but I'm also going to give you your flowers when you need them. I was ready to come on here and yell about Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. He gets a pressure, doesn't close the deal, ends up a 2-yard scramble gain, sets up, I believe it was a 3rd and 8 at that per 2nd and 8. At that point, was really disappointed. Once again, here we're getting pressures, but we're allowing the quarterback to escape the pocket, escape the pressure, and be able to move for a gain. 2 plays later, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka gets a sack. Boom. That's what you want to see out of Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. But another big thing is the secondary didn't look great. And I understand they didn't have Winfield. They moved D. Delaney back to safety to fill in for Winfield. So now you had, I believe it was Isian, who was starting at the slot corner spot. A little bit of rotation, a little bit of moving around, a little shuffling. But when the Bucs weren't getting pressure, that secondary wasn't looking all that great. And again, this was against the Ravens' second team. So little concerned on that front, but I don't think it's going to be a major issue once they have the full team there in front of them. Do want to jump over to the chat again real quick before we move on. We got Demon Hunter again in there. Yah looks good as well. Absolutely. He's starting to come along. He's a rotational guy, but he's starting to come along for a rookie in the preseason. He is looking pretty good. We got Paul, aka Florida Dreamhouse, Cade Otton MVP. I actually sent that in our Bucs Nation staff group chat. Yeah, very excited. Cade Otton looking fantastic. Demon Hunter again. JTS definitely looks better. Let's hope so. I'm not going to crown him off of 1 sack. We've seen the pressures before. Need to see him finish more plays, but I was encouraged that he didn't finish 1 play, bounced back, finished another one, ended a drive. That looked really, really good. And Matt in the chat, do you think the last time we saw Jensen play against the Cowboys will be the last time we see him in a Bucs uniform? I lean yes. Unfortunately, I do lean yes. I hope I'm wrong. Jensen is a very passionate guy, and if he feels that he could do it, he's going to fight his way back onto a football field. I hope it's not the last we've seen of him. I hope he can bounce back, but I get the feeling you're going to have to take a look at the quality of life. Is it worth it for him to fight all the way back and continue playing, or is it best for him, his family, his long-term health to hang him up, walk away from the game. And who knows? I did see somebody in the chat. It's going to be, I'm going to have to scroll back here a little bit. But here it was. Demon Hunter again. Demon Hunter's all over the chat. Can someone say Coach Jensen? Jason Light did mention that Jensen has taken a special interest in Cody Mauch and is trying to build him up. So maybe coaching is in his future. AQ Shipley kind of transition. When he had a career-ending injury, he moved over and started doing some coaching. He's still working with guys in the offseason. That could be a career path if Jensen wants it. We're going to have to wait and see, but I know David has plenty to say about the Ryan Jensen situation. I have plenty to say about my biggest takeaways from this game coming up next here on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. From their legendary high-quality razors to skin products like exfoliating face wash and hydrating lotion, Harry's gives you a premium shave without the premium price tag. As I told you guys, I just had to go through the whole, oh my gosh, my son is not like a little kid anymore, and I had to teach him how to shave before he started high school. And this starter set for $3, a $13 value for $3, couldn't beat it. Got him one. It was the perfect timing for me to go to harrys.com/NFL. That starter set includes a 5-blade German-engineered razor, weighted handle, foaming shave gel, and a travel cover, and you can schedule delivery for refills as low as $2, half of what you're going to pay for other blades. Harry's makes skin products that will give you the best shave ever. Creams, washes, lotions that are going to keep your skin healthy and hydrated. I'm one of those sensitive skin guys. When I shave, I get all the like red rash, prickly stuff. Harry's, the sensitive shave gel, perfect. Does not bother me one bit. So get your best shave ever this summer with Harry's razors and skincare products. Get a $13 starter set for just $3 at harrys.com/NFL. That's harrys.com/NFL for a $3 starter set. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listener view right after this preseason victory for the Buccaneers over the Baltimore Ravens. And of course, David will be back tomorrow for our everydayers and those of you who strive to become everydayers. I have fatherly things that I have to take care of, so David's going to hold down the fort on Monday's episode. So make sure you come back and check out what he has to say about the Ryan Jensen situation. But I want to talk about some of my biggest takeaways from this game. And again, I'm a one-man operation here right now, so I need to scroll through, but I know I saw someone say it in the chat, and it leads perfectly into what I wanted to talk about. And of course, now I can't find it. I apologize. So Dave Canales' offense is going to be a lot of fun. I do want to say that whether the Bucs win 6 games, whether they win 10, whatever the case may be, I can tell you this: the Dave Canales offense in Tampa Bay is going to be fun. If you could possibly pick the absolute polar opposite of what we saw on the offensive side of the ball in Tampa last year under Byron Leftwich, that's what you're going to get with Dave Canales. He likes to put guys in motion. He likes to shift things around. He likes to have his quarterbacks and his offensive line moving the pocket, rolling out, doing all of these things. It's simple, but it's effective. He will line up in a passing formation and run the ball. He will line up in a running formation and pass the ball. Novel concept, right? And a perfect example, it was 3rd and 8, and Canales lined up, turned around, hand the ball off to Sean Tucker, and boom, 9-yard gain and a first down. That's the kind of out-of-the-box thinking, creativity that's going to make this Buccaneers offense a lot of fun to watch. It's not always going to work. It's really, really not. Just prepare yourselves now that for as great as the creativity and the motion and the boots and the rollouts and all that is, it's gonna bite them on occasion. So don't be too critical. Don't be too hasty. Dave Canales is an incredibly smart individual where he's going to do a lot of things early on in the game, probably running the ball on first down, that's going to set things up down the line. He's out there playing chess. Last year, Byron Leftwich wasn't even playing Connect Four, let alone checkers or chess. So as creative and inventive and fun as this Canales offense is, just prepare yourself that some of these things that look great when they work, when they don't work, it's going to bite them in the butt on occasion. But I'm really excited to see the non-vanilla, non-preseason version of this offense against the Minnesota Vikings. Rachaad White is ready. And I'm talking ready. Rachaad White looked fantastic. He was running hard. He was decisive. He wasn't dancing around. He wasn't moving backwards. And that also leads me into my next biggest takeaway. And this is that the starting offensive line was absolutely fantastic in the run game. They were getting so much push and so much leverage and creating opportunities for Rachaad White. This offensive line is built to maul people in the run game. They may not be the best at creating a long-term pocket for the quarterback to drop back, but that's why you have the boots. That's why you have the rollouts. That's why you're moving things around to create more time for your quarterback to be able to move the ball down the field. But with Hainsey in there, with Filer, with Wirfs, with Gedeke and Malk, this offensive line was imposing their will in the run game. And yes, I understand that this was the Ravens' second team, but that's exactly what you should have seen out of your starting five against a second team, is just absolutely dominating the line of scrimmage and shifting them around wherever they wanted them to go to create space for Rachaad White to move the ball. Baker Mayfield, my next takeaway, he's going to be just fine. He was nearly perfect in the preseason. He went 14 for 15 overall between the two games that he played in. But this offense is built for a player like Baker Mayfield. You can see the chemistry is already there with Chris Godwin. I understand Mike Evans didn't play. I would have liked to have seen him out there, but I get it. Baker Mayfield is going to surprise a lot of people this season in his ability to run this offense and keep the Buccaneers competitive. Wide receiver 3, still up in the air. Trey Palmer is going to be a weapon. And as much as David believes that Trey Palmer should be the wide receiver 3, as much as I think he's probably earned that opportunity, when we saw the starters out on the field, we didn't see Trey Palmer. You saw Godwin, you saw Tompkins, you saw David Moore, who knows the offense, who's familiar with the offense, not so much Trey Palmer. Makes me wonder if this is going to be a situation where they're going to do wide receiver 3 by committee. There's not going to be your Russell Gage out there. There's not going to be, going back a couple of years to the Super Bowl season, there's not going to be that Antonio Brown out there. They're going to rotate guys in based off of what Canales wants to do with the down and distance, their spot on the field, all those things. So sometimes your third wide receiver is going to be Palmer. Sometimes it's going to be Moore. Sometimes it's going to be Tompkins. It all depends on the situation. So I really think we're looking at a wide receiver by committee here after Godwin and Evans. But Trey Palmer, that dude is fun to watch. He is exciting. He's a playmaker. He's going to be just fine in this offense. I mentioned it in the first segment. Going to touch on it again real quick because it is one of my biggest takeaways. Secondary is going to struggle if there's no pressure. Carlton Davis is one of the better corners in the NFL. Jamel Dean, one of the better corners in the NFL. We still don't really know what's going on at slot. I think it's probably going to be D. Delaney, but he was filling in for Antoine Winfield Jr. This Todd Bowles defense relies on the ability to get after the quarterback, create pressure, hurry passes, create turnovers. If the quarterback on the other team has a clean pocket and has time, the secondary is going to struggle a lot. They need to figure out a way to get creative, dial up more pressure. The front 7 has to be better about taking care of their business. The front 3 needs to be better about pushing that pocket, collapsing it, getting pressure on the quarterback, or we're going to see some really big plays given up. Really makes me concerned about the matchup against Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison in week 1. And finally, last thing I'm going to touch on for my biggest takeaways for the third straight preseason game, the penalties have vastly improved again. You all remember my tirade after how bad they were at penalties against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Then against the Jets, they got better. This week against the Baltimore Ravens, even better. Only 4 penalties for 23 yards for this Buccaneers team all night. And 2 of those were 2 false starts within 3 plays in a goal-to-go situation. Might have taken a touchdown off the board for the Bucs. They had to rely on a Chase McLaughlin field goal. In the end, it didn't matter, but it could have proved costly at the very end there if it wasn't for Snowden getting a sack on 4th down and ending the game. But again, I like to see all that improvement week by week. They got real better and they emphasized those penalties, and vast improvement. Can't say enough good things about how hard the coaches and the players worked about getting that cleaned up. Real quick before we hit the break, I do want to hit the chat one more time. Mad Dog in the chat. We have a bona fide kicking game. McLaughlin's that dude. And you know why he's that dude? Because he's from Illinois. Shout out to the Illini. He looks real good. Rondé Barber tried to curse him 3 different times by talking about how he was automatic. Yeah, that was Rondé. Calm down a little bit. All right. Let's not jinx the season before it even starts. We got Andre in the chat saying, I'm more concerned for the defense than Baker. Yeah, a lot of people are concerned about Baker, though. That's why I wanted to make sure that I talked about it. I think the defense is going to be fine. I really do. Again, there was no Winfield. There was no Cansey. There was no Levante. And all 3 of those guys bring another level and another element to the level in the defense that they're playing in. So I don't want to judge them too harshly. I did see some good things out of the defensive side of the ball, but the natural pass rush, the organic pass rush without sending extra guys does concern me a little bit when it comes to the secondary. Les Evans, 3 quarters for Trask with only 1 touchdown. He missed on some deep shots, overthrew a couple of receivers. He also had some of his receivers with some pretty bad drops. I will give him that. And again, you all know, our everydayers know, how critical I've been of Kyle Trask. I cannot say enough good things about his development and his improvement from year 1 to year 2 and year 2 to year 3 now. I think Trask is really doing an outstanding job, to the point that, and knock on wood, nothing happens to Baker Mayfield. But if Mayfield goes down and he's going to miss 2 weeks, he's going to miss 3 weeks, I'm not going to panic. It's not the drop off from Tom Brady to Blaine Gabbert. Kyle Trask has a grasp on this offense. He's starting to become more confident, is starting to command the offense a little bit better. And I think he would do all right if he gets called to fill in for a couple of weeks. But we do need to hit this break. I will talk about some of those guys that David and I were keeping an eye on and how they fared against the Baltimore Ravens. That's coming up next here on Locked On Bucs. August is here, and you know what that means. The official start of fantasy football drafting month. My league that I've been in for nearly 25 years, we draft tomorrow morning. And in order to prepare for said draft, I've been doing Underdog Fantasy drafts. Get championship ready for your home league by trying out Best Ball on Underdog Fantasy. All you do is one live snake draft. There's no waivers. There's no trades. Underdog sets your best lineup every week. Try it out with Underdog's Best Ball Mania tournament, the largest fantasy football contest of all time. It's back and bigger than ever, with $15 million of total prizes up for grabs, including an absurd $3 million going to the winner. Last year, the winner drafted their team in July, so don't wait around. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or find them in the App Store and sign up with promo code LOCKEDON to get your first deposit doubled up to $100. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code Locked On. Wrapping things up here on a live post-game reaction episode of Locked On Bucs. James Yarcho, deputy editor of SB Nation's Bucs, BucsNation.com. On our preview episode, when we went live on Friday night, David and I talked about a couple of guys that we were keeping an eye on in this game. We each named two of them. Fitting that we each named two of them because I named Payne Durham. David named Zion McCollum. Both of them pretty much non-factors. But the other guy that David mentioned was Trey Palmer. He made a phenomenal leaping catch. Rondé, for those that didn't see the broadcast, Rondé was talking about how he didn't believe that pass was actually intended for Trey Palmer. You had two Bucs receivers in the same area, and he still made a fantastic leaping catch, brought it down, didn't get in the end zone like David's bold prediction said that he would, but he also has an impact on special teams. There wasn't a whole lot of work with Baker Mayfield, but I think that Trey Palmer played well enough to be a wide receiver 3. But again, as I talked about in the last segment, I think that's almost going to be situational position for Dave Canales and this Bucs offense based on their spot on the field, the down and distance, all of the different factors. What do they need on the field at that moment is going to dictate who the wide receiver 3 is. Maybe after a few weeks, one of these guys, whether it's Palmer, whether it's Jarrett, whether it's Tompkins, they're going to step up and really steal that job from the other guys that are kind of rotating around for it. But Trey Palmer has been an absolute training camp and preseason superstar. You want to see that carry over into the regular season. All of you know the other player that I picked to keep an eye on was Keyshawn Vaughn. And I did keep an eye on Keyshawn Vaughn. There was no Chase Edmonds in this game, and Dave Canales utilized Keyshawn Vaughn as his running back too. And I know a lot of you in the chat on Friday were talking about just get rid of Keyshawn Vaughn now. I can tell you it's not going to happen. I did believe that he was in danger of losing his roster spot due to his performance. He performed much better against the Ravens than he had previously. Not, eye-popping, jaw-dropping numbers by any means. 6 carries, 26 yards. And with Rachaad White in the game, he was the running back too. He took over as the primary running back after Rachaad White was done for the day. I'm still not completely sold, but it's very clear that Dave Canales likes him, likes what he does. Dave Canales kind of has a style of running back that he wants. And Rashad, Chase Edmonds, Sean Tucker, Keyshawn Vaughn fit into that mold. He wants running backs that can run the ball, obviously, wants running backs that can pick up blitzes, and wants running backs that can catch passes. And he believes that Keyshawn Vaughn can do all 3 of those things. Same with Edmonds, same with Tucker, same with, obviously, Rachaad White. And I still think that Sean Tucker looks better than Keyshawn Vaughn and just as versatile. He finished his night 9 carries, 32 yards, 1 reception for 1 yard. He did leave the game in the fourth quarter with an injury. I have not seen or heard any of Todd Bowles' post-game comments, so I don't know if there's been an injury update, but it appeared as though he might have tweaked an ankle, but more than likely it seemed like they were treating it as if it were a cramp. I'm sure we'll get more information. I don't think it's going to be a long-term serious thing, but I do think that Sean Tucker is the better all-around running back than Keyshawn Vaughn. However, I'm not going to be on my solo episode Tuesday where I do my 53-man roster prediction. I'm not going to be screaming for the head of Keyshawn Vaughn. And I won't be, I can't say that I won't be guaranteeing him a roster spot on my projection, but I'm certainly not going to be advocating for them to cut him. Here's the difficult thing about Keyshawn Vaughn. We've seen him do great things in the regular season. Then he had some really, really bad weeks this year in the preseason. So you have to try to balance those between the two. We know what he's capable of. We know what we had seen so far. So which one is the real Keyshawn Vaughn? I lean more towards what we've seen him do in the regular season. And if Dave Canales feels that he fits that style of running back that he wants in his offense, then who are we to argue? Last time, jumping in the chat real quick before we get out of here, we have Speederman 3. Bull said a cramp. Thank you. Beautiful. So even less to worry about. You know, the reason I said it looked like he could have tweaked an ankle is just the way that he went down and the body coming down on top of him. It looked like his foot twisted a little bit, got caught in the dirt. If it's just a cramp, that's great news. We got Vincent in the chat saying Vaughn gotta go. I don't know. I would lock him in as my RB4. If you can stash Laird on your practice squad, and then if you don't get enough out of Vaughn over the course of the first couple weeks in the regular season, maybe bringing Laird up to the active roster, I think that's an option. But I don't think he's going to get cut from this team. Scott in the chat, my buddy Scott, Geiger impressed me. Am I wrong? Block's great. Haven't seen a drop. Geiger's pretty solid. But is he better than Raheem Jarrett? Is he better than Devin Tompkins? Is he better than David Moore? Is he better than Trey Palmer? I don't know. I don't know if I can put Geiger above any of those guys. And the Bucs aren't keeping 7 wide receivers. They may not even keep 6. So I don't know if I see a path for Geiger to make the roster unless the Buccaneers try to hide Jarrett on the practice squad. But Jarrett might get plucked away. That's a dangerous game that you're playing. Luke in the chat, Mike Evans for 1,200 yards this year. Yep. It's my only reaction to that. David, my buddy David in the chat, it's a what have you done for me lately league. I agree 100%. At the same time, we are not seeing everything that Dave Canales is seeing. We don't know what exactly Canales is looking for in his running backs in the offense. To me, as I mentioned, it's going to be those 3 down guys. Can you run? Can you block? Can you catch? If he likes what he's seen out of Vaughn in these practices, in these meeting rooms, in these film studies, then, you know, I do think Vaughn ends up staying on the team. Finally, Victor in the chat. I really like the quarterback battle between the QBs. It shows us we have 2 good quarterbacks in our arsenal. Also seeing what our new offensive coordinator is doing is really showing we could have a promising season ahead. I agree completely. These Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to surprise some people. Baker Mayfield is going to surprise some people. Rachaad White, I fully intend on drafting him way earlier than any of my fantasy league mates would ever dream of, because I've seen it, I know it, and what other unquestioned RB1 are you going to get in like the 6th round? Yeah, draft Rachaad White everywhere. All of you in the chat, I appreciate each and every one of you so much. You've made these live post-game episodes so much fun. We're going to do it all season long. If for some reason I can't do it, I will let you guys know ahead of time. But the plan is every Friday, we're going live on YouTube so that we have the final injury report ahead of the game. We can give you the best information possible to get you ready for the regular season games. Every week, immediately following the Buccaneers game, we will go live on YouTube, just like we have these last 2 preseason games. But I want to thank you all so much for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every single day. If you have any questions, thoughts, ideas, comments, anything at all, drop them in the YouTube comments or email us at lockedonbuckspodcast@gmail.com. Check out everything that I'm doing over at bucksnation.com. Follow everything on Twitter at LockedOnBucs, at JYarcho_Bucs, and at DHarrison82. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. Thank you so much for joining me right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.